All right. So we have with us today, Paul Cecala. And just to give you a little bit of information about Paul, he is a 5 o'clock club certified career coach and been coaching since 1999 and assisted over 3,000 people in either changing careers or starting their professional lives. Seems like a lot of us, right? He has worked for several post-secondary career schools as Director of Career Services, specializing in biotech and pharmaceutical careers, green economy jobs, aviation, allied health, IT, and general administrative professions. He's worked with a program manager for lifelong learning and workforce development training at Fairleigh Dickinson University, as well as County College of Morris. There's a lot of experience. I'm exhausted already, so I don't even know. He knows his stuff. So definitely, if you can take a tidbit or two from what Paul is saying today, you are way ahead of the game. Anyone that came today, you're really way ahead of the game, because think about all the people that didn't attend or didn't think it was important. This is probably one of the most important things in your job search and your career. So pay attention to what he's saying and try and implement a tidbit or two. Paul, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Christine. And, you know, Christine and I have known each other for a bunch of years right now at this point, and I just love working with her and love what she has been doing with the Monmouth County One Stop for job search stuff. So sorry about this. I'm having a couple seconds here with, there we go. And you've got the screen, right? You can see my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, here we go. So, and by the way, Maria, it's so nice to see you on this call. Thank you. I'm glad you joined us today, Maria.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, though Christine did say she's definitely going to moderate the chat and take questions from there, I will be stopping throughout and asking if you have questions. And truthfully, at some point, if you've got a question that's just burning, by all means, ask me. That's really, I'm fine with that. I've actually written a small book on this, a very small book on this topic. It's 4 by 6 and less than a 1/4 inch thick. If you're like me, where the best and only time it seems that I have to read is when in the restroom, it's a one visit read to get through this book. So feel free to check with me about getting a copy of it. And you'll have all the information that's on the slides and everything about this presentation in that book. I also need to give a shout out to John Gillen. I don't know if many of you know him or not. He's a work futurist as well as an HR practitioner. And John and I were work search buddies 2 or 3 different times throughout the last 15, 20 years, as we've each gone through, it seems, a career transition at the same time. And we realized that we were very similar in our thoughts and ideas about how to conduct a job search, and having the opportunity to sit down with each other by phone or in person, ultimately every business day during our search, we found it was not only motivational for each other, but also was a great form of accountability. So we've decided that this is the right way to go. He is instrumental in the information you're going to get this morning, and was instrumental in helping me to write the book. So shout out to John, and if you know him or even if you don't, connect with him and he'd be happy to touch base with you and talk with you as well. So to set the stage a little bit, which of these pictures or statements relate to you in your job search? You know, the two on the right really hit home with me. I'm waiting for the guy in the center left, the lower picture on the left, to take that laptop and throw it across the room, right? Our job search can be very, very frustrating. And as it feels like in the picture from the gentleman in the top left, maybe even very lonely. I know quite often when I was in search, it was a real lonely time for me, that I didn't have the interactions in the office that I would normally have. I didn't, as people parents like to say, it's nice to talk to an adult. I didn't have those adults to talk to, right, when I was in job search. So what I found was if I had a work search buddy, I had that other adult that I could talk to, and I had somebody who could help hold me accountable to the things that I needed to do in my search. So here's the things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the work search buddy process from the concept of what it is and why, through to how do you find one, how do you have that relationship, and ultimately, what do you need to do to end the relationship? So,
You really end the relationship?
Well,
I mean, that's kind of shocking.
I know, and it's a yes and a no question, and
I guess
not
you'll get to it, right?
Yep. It's not a maybe question. It is a yes and a no question. I mean, for example, John and I, because we've moved on from our most recent job search where we were buddies,
Mm-hmm.
we are not maintaining daily contact with each other. So in that sense, we've ended the relationship.
So
But
you
we are
morphed
friends.
that relationship as opposed to ended it. You don't not talk, but you talk about different things.
Well, and right. So it's really changed and changed quite dramatically because we're not talking on a regular and consistent basis, certainly not on a daily basis.
Yes.
And it's moved from a very directed conversation, which a work search buddy conversation is really like, and I'll show you that, to more of an informal conversation and a chance to visit with each other. Before I forget though, why don't you all, when you're ready, take a minute and put your contact information into the chat. And I suggest that because as you save the chat, then you can use that to connect with each other as you see and hear more about what's going on, interact with each other, then you'll be able to, reconnect after today's meeting. So
Paul,
I'd love to see.
May I just interject for 1 second? Because we talked about screenshots and saving screenshots if you wanted to take that information, but that is a great point because if you do put your information in the chat box and you want to save it, that's what I do love about Zoom is that you can do that very easily. If you go to the chat box, which is located right at the bottom of your screen and press chat box, the 3 little dots that are in the chat box, you can press those, save to screen, and just save to a folder, and you can save it over and over again. So it won't save anything before you entered the room, but it will save from now until you leave the room. So that's a great way for you to keep the information at your fingertips for LinkedIn addresses and email addresses and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So let's move on. So, in order to get rid of that loneliness of a job search, we should all have a team of people that we're working with. And here's a list of the people that I see as potentials on your team. You may or may not have all of these folks, but some of them I would strongly recommend, truthfully, self-serving as it sounds, a career coach. Think about professional athletes. None of them goes on the court or the field or into the field to play without having a coach with them to support them, to help and guide and train them. That's what your career coach could do. And I think that you all need such a person in your court. We all need to have some professional mentors. And so find a couple of people that you would consider as thought leaders, people whom you know and trust and value, and maybe have helped you in your career. Find those mentors, include them on your team. Other professional colleagues. If you happen to be part of an outplacement program, they probably have a small work search team or other assets and resources available to you. Make that a part of your team. You might want to have a work search accountability group. Now, groups like this, where you come together for networking and to learn more about the job search process, are real important. And we want to be participating in some of those. But equally as important, I think even maybe more important, might be having a small group of 6 to 10 people whom you get together with on a consistent but not daily basis, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. And you come together and each of you shares a little bit about what's going on in your job search and any challenges you may have. And then as a team, you brainstorm to find the best practices to resolve those challenges. I've seen some groups where, for example, they'll meet and this week they're going to focus on their 30-second introduction. And everybody is going to share their introduction and then it gets critiqued by everyone else on the team. Or they may do 1 week where they just do a resume review for everybody who's there. Or it may be just a conversation where, each person says, this is what's not working for me this week. What do I need to do? And you brainstorm the solution. So a small work search accountability group is really, really helpful. If, like I have been, you've been in search for a long period of time, 6 months or longer, you might find the need for professional therapeutic help. And there's nothing wrong with therapy. I have to tell you, after my first major job loss 25 years ago, it threw me into a huge depression, and I needed therapy to get out of the depression. I needed some chemistry to get out of the depression. And so I've been, we found actually now after 25 years, although it was much sooner than that, that I actually have a biochemical deficiency that causes me to be more depressive than not. So I take psychotherapeutics for depression on a daily basis. It's okay. It's better to know these things and manage them so that you can then present yourself as the best person possible to the world, and in particular to the employment community, to make it easier, faster, and better for you to find a job. So if you need therapy, by all means, go do it. It may be a short-term thing, it may not, but get the help you need. Certainly somebody in your spiritual life could be a great person to add to your team. And obviously some of your family and friends are going to be people that are on your support team. So you want to include these people in your job search in some way. Make sure that they're aware of what's going on within their purview, within their areas of expertise. Ask for their help and assistance. And also be willing and ready, especially with those who are more professional and, say the first 5 of these folks rather than the last 3, be ready to help them where they need help as well.
You bring up so many good points there, Paul. The 8 different support team members, and yet it might apply to you, all 8, and it might not apply to your situation. So picking and choosing who to have as part of your support team is very important for your success.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so why a work search buddy specifically? And let me take one quick step back and talk about work search. I'm going to use that term more and more. In fact, I like to stop using the term job search and focus specifically on work search. What's the difference? Used to be, if your family was similar to mine, my grandfather, both my grandfathers actually, had one career. And each of them had no more than 3 separate jobs within that specific career. Now imagine 40 years working in the same career. In the case of my one grandfather, he was a barber. A barber is a barber. There's no upward mobility, right? He was a barber. So not only did he have one career, he had one job title for all 40 years. My father had two or three different careers and maybe two or three different job titles within each one of those careers. That's not the reality of today. I suspect, like many of you, am on my fourth career right now. And this is the first one where I'll likely have pretty much one job title because I'm a sole proprietorship. But even if you consider career services or career coaching as my career for the last 15 to 20 years, I've had 6 or 7 jobs already within that career. Research shows that typical people in today's workforce should expect that their career will last no longer than 10 years, and then you will need to reinvent yourself and create a new career. Within that career, the typical job will last 18 to 30 months, an average 2 years.
I don't think our grandparents would be very happy about that.
Most of us are not. I'm not happy about that.
It's a huge change for what we have been brought up to believe in many cases.
And when we think about the whole concept of a gig economy, and many of us who are working in project management know this very, very well. Some of us in IT, especially IT development, probably know this. But more and more of us, no matter what career field we're in, what role or function we perform, are finding that our job will only last as long as we are providing value to the employer. And once we stop bringing value, or that our role is no longer needed, they are letting us go. So we need to anticipate that if, like me, at 58 years old, expecting to work until I'm 70, I may have at least one more career in me before I give up and retire full time. So I don't want to talk about job search. I also look at the fact that in a gig economy, we are likely to need to cobble together 2, 3, 4 different paid engagements at one time in order to put together the salary that we need or want for our lifestyle. I can't tell you the number of people I know today who maybe work a full-time job but still have a side gig, or maybe through a consulting process are working 2 or 3 gigs at one time in order to have the income that they want. Hell, even I'm doing that right now. I have a long-term contract to manage a grant for the workforce development boards in North Jersey. That's 20 hours a week. At the same time, I'm running my business as a career coach. So I've got 2 different sources of income at the moment. Put all of these things together, and we need to change our mindset from looking for a job to looking for work. Whatever that may look like, wherever it may be, and whatever it may consist of.
Paul, you have brought up a really good point that having a contract and staying in a position, you have to bring value and show the employer that you are giving value for that salary. So a lot of people on this call think that, okay, well, maybe it is time for a career change. It's disappointing, but how do I move forward? And do you have any advice for somebody that has a situation like that?
Well, and I see Michelle's comment, and Michelle, it's good to see you on the call. I'm glad you joined. Thank you. I have plenty of work, just not paid. And, that is true. A lot of us do have a lot of different kinds of work that we need to do. Some of it is able to be paid, some is not. Some of it maybe doesn't start out as paid, but we move into making it a paid work. For example, career coaching really started out as an avocation for me. But after doing it as a career services director for multiple schools, I started to say, this is something I really love and enjoy, and I want to do it in my free time. And so I started coaching other people outside of the schools that I worked for and started charging for that. Initially, actually, I didn't charge at all because I was just trying to figure it out. But once I got pretty good at it, then I started charging for it. And now I'm charging more than I did then because I think I've got more value to offer, right? And people see that and are willing to pay for it as well. So um, we need to identify not only the things that we love to do, and this kind of goes off into a whole other conversation, but we need to identify the things that we love to do and then find ways to monetize them.
So with that, is a work search buddy, you had mentioned the advantages of having someone to, bounce ideas off of, the elevator pitch, the resume, that kind of thing. Would a work search buddy also be able to give you or point you in a different direction? Is there an advantage to that, or not really? Not really.
I'll give you a qualified yes to that, and I'll answer it real quick, but then I want to come back to some of that later on in the presentation. And the work search buddy should not be giving you answers, maybe giving you ideas, but ultimately is leading you to find your own answers.
So if you're a work search buddy for somebody else, are you giving them the answers or letting them come up with it? I mean,
it's them coming up with their own answers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the presentation now, and and we'll get to that in a little more detail later on. And if you have more questions about it, then by all means ask. Right. So your work search buddy, first and foremost, is someone who can hold you accountable to your goals, to your expectations of what you want and need to accomplish today, this week, in your job search for you to move closer to employment. Okay. And notice I was emphasizing the you. Okay, so that gets to, Christine, kind of what you were asking about. The key here is the accountability. Why are we productive at work? Because we have a boss looking over our shoulders saying, so did you do this yet? Come on, what's happening? Why isn't this done? I need this accomplished.
Yep.
Right. But in our work search, we don't have anyone looking over our shoulder, holding us accountable. We are holding ourselves accountable, and that's really tough to do. So by using a buddy to hold you accountable to your goals, they can't be seen as the enemy because they're not asking you to do something you don't want to do. You've already told me this is your goal. Now I'm making sure, did you get it done? If not, why not? And then more importantly, to be supportive, how can I help you to accomplishment? So that's kind of the nutshell of what a work search buddy is like. Some other benefits is they'll keep you focused. They can give you a different perspective, so show you maybe a different path, but it's still your work search. It's still your decision whether or not you go down that road that they suggest. They absolutely can support and advise and mentor you and give you a lot of different new ideas to consider, or more importantly, the two heads are better than one. So together you may come up with new ideas because as you're talking through something, it may trigger something in either one or both of you. Okay. Are you ready for a buddy? So we really need to think about, is this something that I am ready and willing to engage in? Because a work search buddy relationship is not one way. It's a two-way street. I'm going to help you by holding you accountable to yourself, but you also need to be ready to hold me accountable to myself, right? So are you ready? Are you willing to accept the help of someone else? And are you willing to help someone else? I know of several people who've tried to enter into work search buddy relationships where it wasn't a good match. And it seemed to be a one-way street where one individual was offering all the guidance, assistance, support, and help to the other, but that person was not able to provide any help to the person that was their buddy. And so that doesn't work.
So is that a reason to kind of split ties and find another work search buddy that will do their part
Yes.
and you can do their part?
Yes. Yes. I list here, be committed to a direct employer contact campaign. Now, this is a pet peeve of mine as much as anything, but it's important enough that I think it needs to be stated here. The best way to find a job is by talking to the people who work in the place you want to work, specifically the hiring manager there. And I feel so strongly about that, that if you're not ready to do that, you're probably not ready for a work search buddy, because the buddy is going to also be doing the same thing. So think about, are you willing to put in the effort and the work of networking to find a job? And if you're not, you might not consider a work search buddy. I'll give you one caveat to that, though. If both of you are committed to just doing an online search, then a work search buddy relationship could work out in that scenario. But I just don't see that as the most successful way is finding a job. And so I don't want to encourage that in any way possible.
Paul, you are absolutely right. We have shouted from the mountaintops through all our guest speakers and the videos that networking is the #1 way to land a job. It has an 85% success rate, and that has not changed over the last 20 years.
Yep.
The
So
job board has a 2% chance of landing. So networking is definitely the way to go, Paul.
And the way I kind of like to put that to folks is this, if 85 to 90% of the people who are landing a job or landing work are doing so because they're talking to another human being, whether it be the hiring manager, the best option, or networking to get to that hiring manager, or talking to an agency, well, then spend 85% of your time doing those things. And if less than 10% of people are finding their job through online boards or other online search activities, other activities where you're not talking to a human being, spend only 10% of your job search time on those activities. And if that's out of balance for you, reevaluate what you're doing. I would break those numbers down a little bit further, Christine. What I have seen is generally the numbers shake out between 35 and 40% of people are finding their job through directly contacting the employer, whether it's the hiring manager or some other way, but specifically getting inside that company and talking to that company and saying, hire me, please, not in those words. Another 35 to 40% of the people will find their job by networking. I'm going to talk to Maria Forrest. Maria is going to introduce me to a friend of hers who's going to be in the company that I want to work for. And so I'm now in the door.
And
right?
that is all networking. They're just pieces of networking. You've broken it down to 30 and 30 and 30, but it is all together networking into that job. You are
That's
absolutely correct.
So I like to really work hard to spend about 40% of my time directly contacting the employers I want to work for. And that could mean I see an article in the Wall Street Journal about somebody at the company I want to work for getting a promotion. And so I send them literally a US mail letter congratulating them on their promotion, and then invite them to connect on LinkedIn and start a conversation with them.
Why a US mail letter? I don't understand. I mean, we're in like 2021.
Yeah, because how often do you actually get mail addressed to you? that's not a bill.
Yes.
And
Bad
isn't
news
it
versus good news, you mean?
right? And isn't it kind of nice to get something in the mail addressed to you that's not a bill? That's a good thing, a feel good thing. Why do people still send greeting cards? Because
Yes.
it makes the recipient feel good. So that's why I would do that. But my point is, I'm finding a way to make direct contact with the employer, specifically the hiring manager at the company where I want to work. I'd spend 40% of my time on those type of activities. I'll spend 35 to 40% of my time on through networking, contacting someone I know who knows someone at the company where I want to work, and working that relationship to get an invite into the company. I'll spend 15 to 20% of my time talking with recruiters, staffing agencies, and headhunters, because to leave them out is to forget about the positions that they have, and I don't want to lose those options. And I'll spend the remaining 5 to 10% of my time looking at the online ads, potentially applying online just because I want to be one of the first applicants in the door. But more importantly, once I find that online position, I'm now going to go to my network and work that to get into the position. But
No, we're talking about work search buddies, but there's so many parts of job search in order to actually land. Where do work search buddies fall into all
right.
of those pieces?
Yep. So let's keep moving and we'll get there. You know, Christine, one of the things I love about working with you is we have this wonderful conversation, you and I. The hell with the rest of you all here. No, I don't mean that. But we're having this great conversation. I'd love for others to be drawn into it and add your comments and questions. And Christine, if you see comments coming
Yes.
into the chat, to push them out, that would be great. So let me really define specifically what a work search buddy is. It's someone who is like-minded to you in the way you approach your work search. That's why I said if both of you are committed to an online search, a work search buddy scenario can work in that situation, though I don't prefer it. It should be somebody that you respect, not only as a person, but also as a professional. And someone that you see as a person that you would consider a business partner, whom you feel comfortable calling upon at any time, and that they feel comfortable calling upon you at any time. And you both are willing to give up that time when the other calls, because it's important to be there for each other. In essence, you're going to walk down your path to a new job, to new work together, following that journey together. And what I have seen happen in about 80% of the work search buddy scenarios that I'm aware of that have been successful, and that's really most of them have been successful. If we start the journey at the same time in our work search together, we'll end the journey together, meaning typically work search buddies end up finding work within a couple of days or weeks of each other if they're going through the process together.
You know, I find it very interesting, Paul, that you're talking about work search buddies and starting at the same time. You're probably going to end at the same time. There's not that many people on the call. And I have said before when we started, you are light years ahead of anyone else because you're getting this information. Not only that, people that have a work search buddy are more likely to land faster than people without a work search buddy.
Yes.
It still can happen. However, if you have a work search buddy rooting you on, you are more motivated and
yes.
you are more successful.
Yeah. Beth, I love your comment about contacting the company to find out who the hiring manager is and then reaching out to them directly. That is absolutely the right best thing for you to be doing. But it also means you have to know who are the companies you want to work for so that you can tell people when you're networking with them, but also so you know where to go to find those hiring managers. Great, great comment.
What about money? I mean, we're talking about what we were paid maybe 5 years ago compared to doing the exact same job 2021, maybe we're not getting the same salary or benefits, and it has decreased a little bit. Do you address that at all, Paul?
Not in this specific presentation. But if we want to talk about salary negotiations some other time, we certainly could have a conversation around that.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot to do in salary negotiation that can help bring that up. Who should your work search buddy be? You know, it's typically I found the best ones are people that you don't necessarily have to know very well, but they're an independent person who's outside your typical circle of friends and family, because you don't want them to have that close emotional tie that may cloud their judgment or alter the way they talk to you that, say, your best friend or your spouse might have. And
they have to be in your industry too?
Not necessarily. So what I'd like to see in a work search buddy is someone who is in a similar role within the same industry, or someone who's in the same industry but a different role. The key here is I don't want to compete against my work search buddy for the same exact job. And that's kind of why, for example, John and I work so well as work search buddies. We were both involved in the HR/employment talent development world, right? But he's looking for an HR talent management position within a company or a corporation. I'm looking for a career coaching, career services role, potentially in a higher education or in an outsourcing organization, right? And that's when I was doing a job search, right? So we were involved in enough similar areas that we could share resources, we could talk the same lingo, we could help each other out. But I was not competing for the same job that he wanted. I really did not want the job he wanted. So I could use my network to help him access jobs. He could use his network to help me access jobs, and never were we going to be clashing each other. And that's one of the things you want to look at.
That absolutely makes sense, Paul. I'm really glad that you explained that.
You know, John used to talk about the hungriness factor. So your work search buddy should be someone who is as hungry for work as you are. I saw two people want to become work search buddies. I actually recommended that they not do it because one person was really going into semi-retirement, not willing to actually say that yet, but clearly that was the direction they were going. And they were kind of saying, yeah, I'm going to give, maybe 10, 15 hours a week to my search, and, hopefully I'll find something and it'll all be good. The other person, same age, similar in so many other ways, but in a position where he wasn't ready to retire anytime soon. And he really wanted to get a job quickly and get a really high-paying, powerful position. He was ready to dedicate 40 to 60 hours a week to his job search. They have a different level of desire. And the one who's the go-getter was going to be turning to the other and saying, dude, what are you doing? You need to get off your butt and get this and make it happen. And he's going to say, stop pushing me.
So compatibility is more important than necessarily anything else. Support, right, or motivate. I mean, that's really a big deal.
Right. So being in the same place in your search. If I'm well into the interview process and just about to land a position, and you just got unemployed and are beginning your work search and don't even know yet where you want to work, well, I'm going to be employed and out of the picture before you even get started. Not worth the two of us getting together as buddies. But if the two of us are just starting our work search, or if the two of us are at the point where we're actively networking, then maybe we're in a good place where we're together and we can move forward together and work together on that path to the employment. Some of the other things listed here is shared values and ethics, similar gender orientation, sexual orientation, identity, those things, they can be factors. They're not as important. The thinking there, though, is, we don't want someone who's so homogenous that they're the exact same person as us, because then we're not going to get any new ideas or thoughts. But if we are so diametrically opposed that we're completely different people, we may not be able to help each other because we're going to constantly be bucking heads, and that's not going to work either. Right. So these are some of the things.
Your work search buddy is not necessarily somebody that you might be networking with, that you've met at today's workshop or any other workshop and networking group, but somebody that fits a lot of these check marks that you have.
Yes, yes. And it could be somebody here. It may not be, right? But here are the people that you absolutely do not want on your list, okay? I don't know about you, but when I was unemployed, and the last 3 times that I went through work search, each one of them was 10 to 18 months in time frame. And oftentimes the conversation at home was, so Paul, what did you do today? How come you're not working yet?
I can say so many people say the exact same thing to me.
I know.
You address that. It's the first bullet you have.
So that's not going to be a helpful work search buddy. So I strongly recommend not using someone who lives in the same house as you, especially not your spouse.
They don't get it. I'm sorry. No. Job search is hard. It's frustrating. You need a work search buddy.
And we can talk later on about how to change that conversation with your partner or your spouse, but that's a different conversation. As much as I'm telling you, you need to have a career coach in your corner on your team, and you need to be willing to pay for that service. You can't afford to pay for your career coach to be your work search buddy. And frankly, they're not a good buddy because they're not looking for work. They have a job, it's career coach, right? But if your work search buddy you need to be somebody independent. Sorry, I got a little distracted here at home. Your work search buddy needs to be somebody other than your career coach. Clearly, again, same thing. Your therapist, that's not their job, that's not their role in your life, so they should not be the person, right? And as we've already talked about, not a competitor. Okay, so these are people you don't want to think about for a buddy.
Paul, we had a comment or a question from that last slide, actually. We have somebody on our call today that is looking for 100% remote work job opportunity. Should a work search buddy be somebody else looking for 100% remote work opportunity as well? Maybe a different industry, but similar in that respect, or something different?
Yeah, that can be a consideration, because that means you both are going to be looking for the types of resources that will help you to access those positions that are 100% remote. So it's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a requirement or an expectation that your buddy has to be that. The key there is you're both either in the same industry for different roles, or in the same role but in a different industry. Okay.
Beth, I'm sorry, but I don't understand your question. What do they think we want to?
Oh, no, that's about the spouse, right?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Okay. When he said, when people say, well, you haven't found a job yet, or, well, my question is, what do they think? Do they think we don't want to work? I haven't worked since the pandemic, and I have a family member who says, well, you could do this, you could do that. Do you think it's easy? It's not. I'm not the only one looking for a job.
Right.
So I don't like when somebody says that, because it's very negative, and then you get defensive and you're like, well,
Right.
what do you think?
And
I
that
still
So,
wanna
Beth, if
work.
we
the
have
number
time-
one reason you need a work search buddy, because they know how hard it is. They know what
Yeah.
you're going through.
And Beth, if we have time at the end of the conversation, come back to that and we can talk about some ways to help change that conversation at home,
Oh,
because
great.
that's really important to do. But I want to get through this process first, okay?
Okay,
Thanks,
sounds
Paul.
good.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I love CJ. Oh crap, I forget her last name now, and it's blocked there. CJ Hayden. There we go. I've got the chat blocking her. I love CJ Hayden's concept of how a work search buddy process should work. So these are the things that she thinks are the important steps to an accountability buddy, right? You want to have a fixed time to talk every single day. You're going to check in on your goals and the steps that you took to meet those goals, and you're going to help each other solve problems. Those two things really is the meat and the heart of what this relationship is all about. That's where the accountability comes in, but it's also where the solution-oriented and motivation comes in as a part of the relationship. So those are really critical things. Set limits on the time of how you're going to have the conversation. And I agree with her, a very short time for what she calls reporting or clearing, which basically is the small talk of, you know, hey, Christine, it's good to see you today. How are you feeling, right? Or what's the weather like by you, right? But make that a very, very brief. You don't have a lot of time to waste, so don't waste it on small talk, okay? Always be looking to brainstorm solutions. It's about how do we help each other move forward. It's not about looking back, it's moving forward, right? And then you always need to end your time in the conversation with what are your next steps going to be? What are your goals for the next period of time? And always it needs to be a reciprocal relationship. We both need to feel that we're getting as much from the conversation as the other. So keep those things in mind. Now, here is, here we go. Here's how John and I set up our call. We would only take a minute for that report back or that check-in stuff. Then we would take about 3 minutes for each. So let me take a step back. This is like a 15-minute block of time. And we wanted our calls to be no longer than 30 minutes, shorter if possible. Because we don't want to spend time with each other. We want to spend time finding a job, right? So our goal was to get through this to make it productive. If you're a project manager in particular, an agile project person, you'll know the concept of a stand-up 5-minute meeting. That's the same idea that we have here. Very quick, very focused, very specific conversation points. Now move on and get to the work of the day, okay? So when it was my turn, I would spend, a minute just saying, here's how I'm doing today. Yesterday I got my COVID shot. I'm really feeling crappy today, but I need to get some stuff done. So here's what I plan to do. Right now I go into 2 or 3 minutes of, here's what I did over the last day since our last conversation and how I did on the goals I set for myself yesterday. Now I'm going to take about 10 minutes to talk about what are the challenges that I found in yesterday. And based on the goals I have for today, what challenges do I have coming up for today? And together we would take that part of that 10 minutes to brainstorm, how do I resolve those challenges and find the best solution to move forward?
You say today, here are my goals and plans for today.
Because it's a daily
Does
phone
that
call.
mean that you're meeting or talking with your buddy in the morning first thing, or
So John and
how
I
does that
found,
work?
So John and I found that the best time for us, you may be different and that's okay. The best time for us was 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was actually a race to see who was going to call the other first so that the phone was ringing as close to 8 a.m. as possible. Now, that was never actually formally decided as a race, right? But it just always worked out that, in fact, 75% of the time, John was getting to the phone and calling me before I was calling him. I'm like, damn it, I'm not going to let him beat me to the phone today. I have to be the one that gets on the phone first, you know?
So how
So-
did you have it? Like you just knew 8 o'clock, I'm going to talk to John, or was it on your calendar? Did you block off that?
Yeah, we set up,
time?
we set that as a
Anything
time.
else, an event or a Zoom call or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah, we set that as a specific calendared event every day from Monday through Friday, that at 8 a.m. we were going to talk. And we did not ever set, it's your turn to call me. We could do that. You could do that. We just chose not to. It just was at 8 o'clock, we're going to call each other. And this was mostly before Zoom was more popular. So we were doing by phone. If you can do it by Zoom, I think that'd be even better, but I understand Zoom fatigue, so you may not want to. Either way, we'd get on the phone at 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday. One of us would go first. Here's how I'm feeling, check in. Here's my report back on yesterday's goals. What was progress I made? Here's the challenges that I'm looking at coming up for today or that I had yesterday. Brainstorm how to fix those over the course of 10 minutes. Now, here are my goals and action plans for today. And that would be the end of my time. Then John would say, okay, well, here's how I'm feeling. Here's the progress I made on my goals from yesterday. Here's my challenges. Brainstorm the solutions over 10 minutes. Here are my action plan for tomorrow, for today. And all right, I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Now, there were some times where, you know what, I really am just dead from COVID, and I just can't get the strength today to make the phone calls I need to do to move my job search forward. So, Paul, how about, would it be helpful if I checked in with you around lunchtime to see if you're making progress and see if I can help you boost your energy level a little bit? And we would do that for each other. And that's great because that's the support that we're supposed to be. Now, a part of that clearly is also making sure the accountability, but it was more about the support. But that also should not be an everyday occurrence. You know, the conversation should be once a day. First thing in the morning is what we found to be best. You may choose to do in the evening, you know, just before you finish your work day. You may choose to do some other time in the middle of the day. I'll give you our reasons for why we wanted to do it first thing in a moment. But have that call every single day. Keep it short, keep it sweet. You know, after about the first month or two, the first time we were doing this, we got our calls down to about 20 minutes a conversation. And we got through the agenda that we needed to. We helped each other the way we needed to. And we were moving forward in our day, in our job search.
I like the chat box. Somebody had said that they love your agenda, keeps things accountable and on track to ask those questions that are so important. You said it kind of got from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. How long did you have a job search buddy? How long did it take to, you know, kind of fizzle out or for you both to land?
Yep. For both of us, we maintained our buddy relationship until we were able to work. And I'll talk more about that when we get to kind of winding down a relationship in a few minutes in the slides. Okay. Tom McGaldy from Inside Higher Ed kind of talks about how you should get your first meeting going. And this is a really good game plan for your very first meeting. I suggest that it should be about an hour long, that first conversation. And you're each going to take a half hour of that time, right? So notice we're always splitting between the two of us equally in the time that we're spending, okay? And you're going to, in that 30 minutes that you have, you want to be able to share enough about who you are and what you do and what you're looking to do for the future that I, as your buddy, can feel comfortable in not only knowing you, but also knowing who to refer you to and how to best help you, right? So swap your marketing plans and resumes and share what's in there, maybe a little bit more in depth than what you hear, almost like you're being interviewed, right? Talk about the kinds of positions you're looking for and what you like or want in the position that you want, that you're going after. Talk about where do you want to work? You know, that was a great question before about 100% remote, which is a real possibility in today's environment, maybe wasn't 16, 18 months ago. Okay. Know who your target employers are, preferably before you go into the process. Now, the one time I will say that that's not necessary is if you're starting the process at the point of starting your job search. You know, two people just laid off from the same company at the same time. That's a great time to start a work search buddy relationship, because now you're going to go through the whole process start to finish together, right? In that case, you would not necessarily know who your potential target employers are yet, and that's okay, right? But ultimately, all of us have been at this for a while. We should have a list of who our target employers are, and we should be able to share with each other, okay? Share your professional networks and the connections that you have that can help each other. Look at where do you need help? Specifically, where do you need help in the job search or the work search process, right? But potentially, to a lesser extent, where do you need help in order to ensure you meet the requirements and skills expectations of the job or work that you're seeking? And then talk about some of your goals and deadlines and when do you expect to be at the point of finding a job. Okay, so here you're defining how are you going to help each other get through your work search, and what are you going to do for each other? How are you going to help each other, right? You know, there's all different acronyms for how to set good goals. This is a new one to me at the time, you know, PACT goals. But whether it's a SMART goal, a PACT goal, or just a plain old goal, I don't care. It needs to have several things. So when you're talking about your daily goals, you know, is it something that's doable? Is it something that's possible? Is it something that you can take action on? Is it very clear and well defined so that there's no wishy-washiness to it? And is it time bound? Now, the time bound really should be pretty clear. This is what I'm going to accomplish today because tomorrow I need to tell you how I did, right? So it's just what am I doing for today in terms of time bound, right? You may talk in a more broad or conceptual basis about some of your longer term, week, month, 3 months, hopefully not, out for your job search goals, right? And that's not a bad thing to kind of touch base on. But as far as this conversation today is concerned, it would be, what am I going to do in the next 24 hours to move my job search forward so that when I talk to you tomorrow, I can report back on what I've accomplished. So these are just some other things that, in this case, Goalcast, you know, Ali Walensky suggests, and I think they're great. Set your norms. How are you going to have your conversation? What's it going to look like? When is it going to happen? All of those norms of how you're going to conduct yourself. What are acceptable reasons? Wait, listen how I said this. What are acceptable reasons for canceling or postponing or changing the commitment to our call? For example, John and I both committed to networking. He would probably once or twice every 2 weeks have a networking conversation that was an appropriate and important networking conversation that the person he was talking to could only meet prior to the beginning of the workday. So he would be networking with them between 7:30 in the morning at a Starbucks at that time, and not done until 8:30. Well, that's an important part of the job search. So that was an acceptable reason to postpone the phone call. The
Do
fact
you
that,
state that with your work search buddy, what those acceptable cancellations would be?
yes, you want to set those as your norms. You know, what we said was, don't care that you're a baseball fanatic and you stayed up to watch the end of the World Series game last night. Our phone call is at 8 o'clock this morning. So whether you go to bed at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock last night, or 2 o'clock this morning, I don't care. At 8 o'clock this morning, you and I are on the phone, and you better be ready for the conversation. Right now, that sounds a very negative way of saying it, and I don't mean it that way. But the point is, I'm committed to my work search buddy. I'm committed to my work search. And I am not going to allow anything that is not immediate dire family needs or work search related to get in the way of my having my work search buddy conversation, because my work search is that important. Be ready and willing not only to give and take feedback, often giving more than you take, but be willing to give that feedback that the person doesn't necessarily want to hear. And be willing to take that feedback from your buddy, right? Paul, yesterday you said you wanted to make 5 phone calls. You told me that on your calendar, you only had 1 hour committed to an appointment, and you only made 2 phone calls? What got in the way? Push on that. Don't let your buddy get away with slacking off, right? But
So
don't
in
push in
essence,
a
you
negative
become
way.
a counselor and a networking partner and a friend, all tied into the term work search buddy. You're making
Yeah,
a commitment to that person, and you want their commitment as well, so that you get the feedback and you can give and take.
yes. However, I would not use the word counselor.
Counseling,
Got it.
okay?
That's
Thank you.
just
No, it's
because
okay.
we got to be careful about terminology. But
No.
yes, I want to be that confidant,
Thank you.
right? That is able to say things that somebody else may not be able to say. But I also want to be able to, but through good communication, do it in a way that's not off-putting, right? Still respectful. Be consistent. Own up to your own mistakes. We all make mistakes. Don't be perfect. You know what? You're right. I did say I was going to make 5, and I only made 2. And I allowed my son's need for entertainment to get in the way of my doing my job search. I've got to spend more time with my spouse and my family talking about, when I'm in job search mode and I'm in my office, this is uninterrupted time. You need to leave me alone. I need to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And let's talk about, as a family, how and why that's important and what we're going to do to make sure that's allowed.
That is so important to have that conversation for home. That is thank you, Paul.
But it's, it was, again, hearing from my buddy, right, that, Paul, you're letting this get in the way of you accomplishing what's most important, and that is getting your job search done so that you can be there to do the things that the family wants and needs and provide for the family as well, right? Some other things, this happens to be from Inc.com, critique, don't criticize, right? Keep things positive and upbeat as much as possible. So even when you're giving some of that negative or more difficult feedback, do it in a very positive way so that the person feels good about what you're saying and ready and willing to make change because of it, right? Here again, this is another place in the article saying, be committed to your buddy. So all of these other resources that I've brought in, you're seeing they're all saying the same thing. Make the commitment to yourself and to your buddy to be there for them and do what's necessary, right? And don't forget to keep working with those other people on your team. I've had some of my clients touch base just 3 times a week. I've had some try doing just once a week phone calls, and they were only marginally effective at once a week. 3 times a week, they were effective, but not quite as effective as speaking every day, 5 days a week. So I would encourage you to do it as often as possible, at least 3 times a week, prefer 5 times a week. John likes to use fun terms, and he came up with this term money hours, and it's a great term. We don't want to do anything during the money hours, that is during the business day, that is not specifically active job search, work search activities. So we wanted to have our work search buddy call at 8 o'clock because it really wasn't until 8:30 or 9 o'clock before we could, that we could really start our work search activities. People were just not available to talk to. Things were not around, right? So 8 o'clock in the morning, we could have the call, we could get off the call, and then immediately start our networking and phone calling and whatever other activities we were doing for our work search right then and there. Another thing we noticed, Monday mornings is not a good time to call people at work because they're coming in from the weekend and they got to get caught up on the 100 emails that came in since they left on Friday and whatever fires have cropped up over the weekend, right? So don't bother people on Monday mornings. Don't bother people on Friday afternoons, especially as we're coming into the summer now. People have checked out. They're ready for the weekend. So, Monday mornings and Friday afternoons may be good times to have conversations like with a work search buddy or your work search team. But typically from 8:30, 9 in the morning till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, those are the hours you should be working on your work search. And you shouldn't be allowing anything else to get in the way of doing the activity you need for your search. So your work search buddy call should be outside of those times, right? And I can't emphasize enough that the accountability is not to anything I want you to do. The accountability is to what you want to do. And I'm just reflecting that back to you to make sure you're held accountable to it. All right. Any specific questions at this point? I realize I haven't stopped and
I
asked
have a
many.
lot of comments, not so much questions. I do have a question for you though, Paul. We have a lot of, you're very well aware, we're in the gig / freelance / contract economy. And if you are looking for that next gig, or you're looking for that full-time permanent position, how do you manage to juggle a position that's short-term with your family, with job search and job search buddies and commitments and that kind of thing? How do you propose somebody do that?
Yeah, the short-term answer is good time management. And again, that's a topic we could spend a whole lot of time on, is how do we do a better job of time management? I can tell you what I have found as a sole proprietor working on several different projects at the same time, managing multiple priorities, including being the stay-at-home dad for 2 special needs boys, late teens, actually. Please pray for me. My youngest is about to get his driving permit. So what I found has worked best for us is we have a Google Calendar that has everybody in the family on the calendar, so we can all see each other's commitments, and every one of us color coded. It's an elaborate calendar. I'll show a copy of it to you in a minute. But here's how impactful that can be. About 5 minutes before getting on this phone call, my 16-year-old came to me and said, Dad, when today can we work out or go out and play basketball? And, part of his autism is that, this is a way that I need to spend time with him and build relationship with him. And so I need to have, every day we need to either work out or go spend 15 minutes on the basketball court, one or the other. And, thank God as he's getting older, it's making it a little easier for him to adjust and be willing to step away from the calendar. But when I told him I have 1 hour of opportunity between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock today, and he said, yeah, I saw on your calendar, you look pretty busy. And when you're not busy this afternoon, I'm busy. I said, yes. So, I can offer that 1 to 2 o'clock hour to you. Outside of that, it may have to wait till after dinner if we're able to do it at all. Oh, yeah. Okay. I understand. Maybe I can change some of the stuff on my calendar and see if I can be available after you're done, right. But by having all this information in one place, it makes it easier for us to manage it both as a family, as well as an individual and as a professional. So that's the one thing I would say.
Thank you.
Remember, your work search is about productivity. Your work search buddy conversation is about productivity, right? So what are you measuring? What are your goals and deliverables for today? And these are some of the things that I would suggest that are most important for you to be doing on a daily basis, and therefore measuring how much of it are you doing on a daily basis, and setting specific goals for how much you should be doing on a daily basis, right? So if you're committed to doing a direct human contact job search, you should be making contact with 3 to 5 hiring managers every week. And I can show you some other research that bears out these numbers, not important for the moment. My recommendation is you want 3 to 5 hiring manager contacts every single week. Now, that doesn't mean every week you're talking to 3 to 5 new different people, but over the course of a month or two, every week you want to be talking to 3 to 5 hiring managers. So I may have 4 conversations over the course of 6 weeks with one hiring manager. That's great. That's 4 hiring manager conversations, right? So every week, talk to at least 3 to 5 hiring managers. That would mean I want to talk to one hiring manager a day. You might find that the best day to talk to hiring managers is Thursday. So I'm going to try and reach out to them earlier in the week, but by Thursday, I want to make sure I've had my 5 hiring manager conversations, or have those scheduled for next week so that I know next week I'm going to talk to the 5 people, right? Research also shows that if you're not talking to that many hiring managers on an ongoing basis, then you need to be talking to 8 to 10 people who can introduce you to those hiring managers. And you need to have an ongoing conversation or relationship with those 8 to 10 people. So I want to make sure that every day I've got at least 2 networking conversations scheduled. And if I can't schedule 2 a day, well, then maybe today I'm going to schedule 3 for Monday and 2 for Tuesday and none on Wednesday, but 4 on Thursday, so that by the end of the week, I've got my 10, right? Either way, I need to know that that's what I've got to accomplish. And so now when I'm talking to you today on my call, my work search buddy call, I can say, today I've got 1 hiring manager conversation scheduled. I've got 2 networking conversations scheduled. My goal with the hiring manager is to make this happen to get us closer to him interviewing me. My goal with the networking conversations is to get to this step so that they're ready to recommend me to the hiring manager, right? As important as these meetings are, and let me tell you, as a career coach, this conversation that I'm having with you is my life bread. Without this conversation, I don't get new clients, right? So what are the things you need to do? Where are the places you need to go to get access to hiring managers? I love you, Christine. You know that. this is not the place, folks, for you to go to get access to hiring managers.
Sorry.
It's an important place to go, right? Because you wouldn't have learned about this process if you weren't here. So it's an important place for you to go. But
people
more
know
important,
people who know people who know people, and it's about networking. It's not about applying online. And that brings up a question that maybe you can help answer, Paul.
well,
in
hang
the
on just
chat
one
box.
second. Hang on just a second, Christine, because I
Okay.
want to finish this concept.
Go ahead.
The more important places for you to be networking are with the professional associations, the industry associations that you are trying to break into. So yes, come to these networking groups, get what you can from them. But if your choice is to spend time at this networking group or spend time at, I don't know, Maria, a SHRM, Society for Human Resources Management meeting, right? You need to spend your time at SHRM, not here, because you need to be with other hiring managers, other professionals in your field, right? So
and having conversations and demonstrating your value
yes,
by volunteering.
yes.
All of those industry professional associations.
So that's, you know, as a part of your productivity, how many professional or industry association meetings per month are you attending?
Too many.
Well, you may be, but I bet most of us are not. Right? And then if there are no association meetings that are appropriate, well, now I may want to start looking at networking groups like this, because there is a value to attending these groups. And so I want to attend the time, the dates, and the ones where I will gain the most value, right? So I love, for example, that Michelle and Maria joined us today because they know me, I'm assuming, well enough to know that this is probably a great topic, and I'm going to be giving them great information, and they wanted to learn more about it. So it's important for them to be at this meeting. They have a goal, a reason for being here. What is your goal or reason for attending a networking meeting? And even with the professional association meetings, my goal is to meet 3 people that I don't know at tonight's meeting. My goal is to speak to Mary Smith that I know is going to be there, and she's the hiring manager at the company I want to work for. So my goal is to find a way to talk to her tonight at that meeting. Great goals. Now, when you're talking to your work search buddy, you can say, this is my goal. And tomorrow I can ask you, so did you do it? What held you back? Okay. Now, your question, Christine.
Well, you just explained a lot and the value of networking as well as attending those meetings. And in the meantime, I had a couple more questions pop up. Okay, what are your thoughts on looking for work on job marketplaces like Upwork or Fiverr in our context?
Okay. For me, that's a complex answer.
Me too.
If it is not detracting from more productive job search, work search activities, do it. If you're in a financial situation where you need that income, God's sake, do it. If it is a part of your overall work strategy, I'm going to be doing Fiverr short-term gigs as well as more traditional consulting, then do it. But if you're doing it just to fill time and feel productive, I would probably not do it. If doing it gives you the ability to show proof that you have the skills and knowledge that you say you have on your resume, hey, then do it, right? So there are a lot of reasons, different reasons, why it may be appropriate for you to do that type of gig work. So I don't want to say don't do it, but it
So
needs to be a
basically,
part
go
of
back
your
a couple
overall plan.
slides and look at your goals. Look at what you want out of
Yes,
your entire job search to figure out how to spend your time and what you're going to get out of it in
yes,
order to make a decision such as that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Next question.
Okay, so we talked about hiring managers and doing some research, and do we just go on the company website to find out who is the hiring manager? Is that of the company? Is that what you're saying? Or won't they just say apply online to the job?
Yeah. So anymore, I agree, and with deference to Maria and the other HR professionals on the call.
Oh wait, I'm HR too, so I might disagree with you. Go ahead.
You know, most employers today are going to refer you directly to HR and or directly to their online application process. And I understand that that's what, you know, why they do that, and that it's important that they do that. It's not unfair for them to do that. Okay. What the beauty of LinkedIn and some other resources I'll give you in a second is that they can help you to get access to the names of the hiring managers that you need to have access to. And so be a detective, be a sleuth, and find the hiring manager's name somewhere, somehow, or even find the hiring manager's boss's name, right? So where can we go to get that information? Well, depending on your level in the company, you might be able to use their annual report or their About Us or Meet the Team page on their website. You can potentially get some of that information from their SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission filings. There's a fabulous resource that as a New Jersey resident, you have access to simply by being a member of your local library called Reference Solutions. It used to be Reference USA. It's now called referencesolutions.com.
I love free. Yes.
Yep. And while that is a paid subscription service, the New Jersey Department of Public Libraries has paid for that service for all public libraries in the state of New Jersey.
Yes.
So as long as you hold a library card for whatever your local library is, you have access to Reference Solutions. And I'll just take a minute to talk a little bit more about that, because that organization lists out to the best of their ability every corporate facility location in the country, and it, as much as they are able, and they're probably about 85–90% consistent in doing this, lists out the key employees in each of those facilities, as well as the information on the corporate headquarters. Right. So there's a great ability to access tremendous information using Reference USA or Reference Solutions, and that listing can potentially give you the names of organizations you just had no clue existed, let alone the hiring manager in that organization. Next question.
Side comment. Yes, many organizations will tell you that you have to apply online, and they'll give you the www address or that kind of thing. I agree with Paul. You need to find and do research on the company to find the hiring manager so that you can apply. And he gave some really great advice as far as Reference USA and SEC and all of these things. With that said, there are other ways to find and do research on a company and find out who the hiring manager is. That is truly the purpose of all of these different webinars that are offered to you for free. In gosh, 98% of the cases, LinkedIn is a really big deal, and you can find who knows who through
Yes.
a free version of LinkedIn.
Yes.
And the way to do that, again, is a whole different webinar, but find out about how to use LinkedIn to do that research so that you can find the hiring manager, because that's part of your job search. Using alumni, using the network you already have, making your network bigger because you're looking for a target company. So you might have to apply online, but your best bet is to send an e-note with your resume attached to a hiring manager, not HR, not the recruiter. They do not make decisions on who to hire. A hiring manager does. So it's very
Christine,
important. There's differences. Yes.
I want to keep moving because we're getting to the home stretch here.
Okay.
But do we have any other questions at the moment?
There is one question. Typically, I do 8 to 10 Zoom Trade Association webinars a day. You can Google to find them. That's awesome, Alan. That's
No,
awesome.
I would kind of disagree.
Well, if you're
8 to 10
meeting people, well, 8 to 10 a day. I'm
day.
thinking 8 to 10 a week. 8 to 10 a day, that's a lot.
Yeah, 8 to 10 a week
Right.
is not a bad. 8 to 10 a week is a great number.
Okay.
If you it still allows you the time to then go back and connect with individuals who were at those meetings and do the networking that's needed, right?
You must be zoomed out. I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
That is a lot.
So, one of the things we've been alluding to about a work search buddy is that it needs to have some type of an agreement. I don't think it needs to be in writing, but if you feel that it's better for you or the two of you that it's a written agreement, by all means do it. But what are you agreeing to when you enter into this relationship? We're agreeing to meet at least by phone, if not in person, on a regular interval. Again, I prefer daily. I recommend that at least once a week you try and meet in person. If you're, meeting weekly or daily, one of those days try and be in person because it is a little more informal and it may take a little longer, but there's a lot to be said for the interpersonal interaction. Be respectful of your time. Be sure to agree to confidentiality. I want to be able to share some of my dirty laundry with my work search buddy, but I don't want that to get out to the rest of the world. So be confidential in what you're doing. Make sure that you agree to be positive and supportive, but willing to critique and take critique and be constructive in the way that you do that. And agree that you're going to meet your own obligations and goals that you set for you. It's one thing for us to say we're going to be work search buddies and I'm going to do, or you're going to do everything that you say you're going to do, and you go and try and meet all your goals, and I'm not committed to meeting my goals. That's demotivating to you because I'm not doing it, right? So know what you're agreeing to and then formalize it or informalize it however you feel is most appropriate to you. Oops, I'm sorry, I was in the chat there. So just extra things that I think were important and worth talking about. Don't be afraid to check in once in a while on your overall health and well-being. John used to say to me, Paul, you don't sound your normal self. Are you on your game today? And that was his way of asking, how am I feeling, right? And if you're not feeling well, emotionally, mentally, physically, doesn't matter. If you're not feeling well, own up to it. And then, as the work search buddy, how can I help you get beyond that so that you can be productive in your search today, right? Always be challenging each other on your productivity because that's what it's all about, okay? All right, as I said earlier, to have a 5-minute check-in call at some point during the day on some days, if there's a reason for it. It's also all right if, we generally had an unwritten norm of our meetings that if one of us had an important interview or networking meeting, we would typically call the other at the end of that meeting and just give real quick, hey, I just wanted to touch base. I got off of that interview. I think it went really, really well. Here's why. Or, oh my God, John, I really screwed this one up. I don't know how I'm going to save it now. And we might take 5 or 10 minutes to talk about that if John had the time right then and there. Or that might become our conversation for first thing tomorrow morning when we get on our work search buddy call in the morning, right? But he could then say, all right, Paul, not the end of the world. You screwed up this interview, you think. Let's work together to figure out how you can salvage it. And then let's move on. What's the next thing you need to do for your goals for today, right? And we would be motivating each other and helping each other keep going, okay? So what happens when it's time to end the relationship? And there's 2 different scenarios here typically. One is, you know what, this just is not working for me and I need out. The other is, I got a job, yay, now what, right? In both cases, we don't want to leave our work search buddy in the lurch, all off their own, haha, bye, see ya. No, that's not helpful, right? So if you're in the situation where one of you gets employed before the other, I would encourage you to find a way to maintain the relationship for at least a month or so. It does a couple of things. Number one, as I said earlier, typically your buddy is probably about a month away from finding a job themselves. So be there for them through that process, see them through it. Number two, as you're starting your new job, it's not a bad thing to have somebody to bounce ideas off of and get a reality check. Am I hearing and seeing this properly? Should I look at it a different way? Am I, sabotaging myself? That kind of a thing. So keep on top of that. So those are reasons to keep the conversation going when you find a job. But when it is time to end, and in particular, if it's time to end because it's a one-way street and I'm not getting out of it what you're getting out of it and it's just not working, first off, as a part of your agreement, agree that you're going to end and stay friends and that it's a professional relationship. We're going to end it in a professional way and we're going to have conversation around that, okay? Christine, I've really been enjoying our phone calls. I'm just not sure that I'm getting out of it what I need. And so let me tell you what I'm looking to get out of it. And let's see if we need to adjust our agreement to make that happen for me. Or is this really not going to work and we should look at another option, right? But have that conversation in a professional way. Be honest about what's not working and how it can be fixed. Always be looking for solutions. If you really need to, don't be afraid to touch base with your career coach and ask them to help you with how to have that conversation or to be a part of that conversation. But in the end, you need to be able to separate and still be friends. And that's really what's most important, okay? So you can end the relationship or change it so that it's not a daily thing. But be kind and gentle about it. And always, if possible, have some thoughts or ideas on someone to replace you. Listen, you and I are not working out, Christine, but I know that Maria, sorry, Maria, I keep picking on you, but I love you. I know Maria is looking for a buddy and the two of you are in the same field. And I think the two of you can work well together. I'd like to introduce the two of you together and see if maybe that would be a good work search buddy relationship for you since this one's not working out. If you're able to do that, do it. Take some time to try and make that happen if you can before you end the relationship so that you can come to that conversation with a suggestion, right? But
never burn bridges.
That's right. Never burn. And that's what's being professional is that you're not burning the bridge.
Yes.
Okay. So where do you go to find a buddy? You know, you can find them on LinkedIn. You can find them by attending groups like this. You can find them in other networking scenarios. You can find them from coworkers. You know, you can go almost anywhere to find a buddy, right? The key is that you're both in the same place in your job search and you're both willing to work together to help each other in your search. Remember, it's about accountability. Number one, first and foremost, it's about accountability. Okay, so I think we are at the end. So any other quick questions? I'm going to just put my contact information on the screen there. And, you know, as it says on the bottom, you know, if you're interested in having a copy of the book, I would encourage that. Number one, if you want to get it directly from me, you're welcome to. And I'm not trying to sell the book. Don't take this way. It's just, if you think the Work Search Buddy process is appropriate for you, then you might want to have a copy of this in order to help you get through it. Many people have told me that by having this literally in their pocket, that it was helpful when they were going through the relationship because they could refer back to it and say, oh, wait, we're getting off track. Here's how we can get back on track. You can contact me and get it directly from me. You can get it through Amazon. It's $5 cheap. And you know, if you do want to get it and you come to me directly, I'll even sign it. And so you'll have a signed copy. Okay.
Are there any other questions for
Yes.
Paul? He's given us a lot of information. There was a lot of information on the slides, but he really told those stories and examples of how to take all of those bullets and really understand where he's coming from and how to implement them. So I do appreciate that, Paul.
Thank you.
In our chat box, I see nothing yet. Anybody?
I have a question. I have a question for
Go
Paul.
ahead, Maria.
Go, Maria.
Paul and I know each other, you know, for quite some time. What do you say to a person who says, oh, I really don't need a work search buddy. I'm tough enough on myself. I keep a to-do list daily. I follow up with myself. You know, why do I need to now, add another, you know, to do on my list?
God bless you. Have fun. I'll find someone else.
Okay.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, truthfully, you know, we could go down the road of trying to say you're a fool. Let's work on finding ways why it's helpful to you. Let me prove to you that this is of value. You know what? You're wasting your time. Don't bother.
You don't want to convince somebody that it is in their best interest, that there is or isn't, because I don't think that they're as committed to that relationship as you are, and you want them to help you. And I don't know if you're going to receive that help. So I think I agree with Paul. Move on and find somebody else.
By the way, I did just put my contact information in the chat a second time. I did it at the beginning, but I did it again now, so that in case you missed it off of the screenshot, you've got it there as well. Thank you, Maria. That was a good question. What else?
Anyone else?
So I have another question kind of related to Maria's question. So I've previously, I've been part of a job search work team. We met weekly. It was in person, so and it was productive. And I think that, and it was led by a coach, and it was different than organizing it on your own, that was effective. But I would suspect that even though the concept of search work buddy makes a lot of sense, I would suspect that a lot of people would just rationalize away from it. And I'm not saying that's not right thinking, because I think you're right on. It's not easy to find a good work search buddy. But so what's your your kind of experience in presenting the work search buddy concept to people?
Vito, if they're a little wishy-washy about it, then I might spend a little bit of time trying to show them how it can be helpful and how we can be supportive of each other. and why it might be, you know, it might prove that we both benefit from it, right? But if it was more of like Maria's scenario where, you know, I just don't need this, why are you bothering me? You're right, then I'm not going to bother you. So you think about, think about your persuasive skills, right? What do you need to know and do in order to persuade someone to do what you want them to do? And that is, you need to know what their wants and needs are. So question them about how their job search is going and what's working in their search and what's not working in their search. And then say things like, if we were work search buddies, here's where I see that I could help you. You're having trouble with this aspect of networking. I'm usually pretty good at that. Here's some suggestions I have for now, but maybe if we were to talk a couple of times a week, we might be able to get even more productive on that. And you seem to be doing really well with this aspect of the search that I'm kind of having some struggle with. So I'd really like the opportunity to talk to you on an ongoing basis to get help with that, right? And if they're really not interested in helping another person, then they're really not worth being your buddy. Find someone else.
As I've always said, Vito, if you've tried something for 6 weeks and it is not working and you're not getting the results that you want, you need to try something else. And if the person hasn't had a work search buddy before, maybe it's time to implement that strategy to see if it works for both of you, because you can't say it's not working or I don't need it if you've never tried it.
Right. I've got time for like 1 or 2 more questions, but I've got another meeting at noon that I have to prepare for. So I'm going to need to get off in about 5 minutes. Anything else anyone has?
The biggest thing I see from job seekers that do come to me or Monmouth County Workforce is that their friends and their family do not get it. They don't know or understand how hard it is to job search. They see signs all over. Why don't you have a job yet? I don't understand. You can walk in and get a job. That's not the case. And I have empathy. I've been there and done that. Paul has been there and done that. A lot of us have been there and we get it. And that frustration quickly turns to depression. And if you can avoid that by having a work search buddy, that is huge. Somebody else that gets it, understands, but then hold you accountable and you can really brainstorm and feed off of them and they you. So this is definitely going to be very helpful if you can find somebody that sees things your way.
So let me just real quick show you this. This is a calendar of one of my clients, and how he used this to change that conversation at home was masterful, and I love it. Notice how he has calendared time for everything that he's going to do every day, right? And if you add up all of the job search activities, job buddy call, networking, review boards, job seeker meeting, right? If you add up all of those research targets, add those things all up, it comes up to 40 hours a week. Notice though, here on Monday, he's got 3 hours Monday afternoon that are set aside to do nothing, because he's putting in 5 hours, 6 hours of work search time during the day, but he also has this meeting Monday night that's work search related. So he's taking the time that he would normally relax and spend with family in the evening and doing it in the afternoon. Part of what this has done for him, he now posts his calendar every week. Now he set this up as a standard, but clearly he's not going to be able to make networking calls or have networking meetings every Wednesday at those specific times. Things are going to need to be adjusted, right? But every week he takes his calendar and he posts it, literally prints it out and puts it on the refrigerator for the whole family to see. And in this space where it says networking calls, he's going to list out the people that he wants to contact. In the space where he's got meetings, he's listing out who is the networking meeting with, right? Who is he talking to? Now, when the family is looking at, why haven't you got a job yet? And in particular, his spouse. The question no longer is, so why don't you have a job yet? What are you doing today to get a job? It turned to, hey, Paul, I see that Wednesday afternoon to this afternoon, you've got some networking meetings. Are you all set for them? Can I help you prepare? At dinner, the conversation became, so how did those interviews go this afternoon? Tell us what happened. Are you moving forward, right? It just changed the dynamic of the conversation from this negative nag, 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 honey-do list, get it done, right? To here's what I am doing. Here's how you can help. Or I, as the spouse, I'm excited to see the activities that you've got going on. Tell me what's happening with them. And then you can share how this networking phone call gave you the name of the hiring manager. So see, networking is leading me closer to the job, right? And you can point to the forward motion that you're making in your job search. It also then says, well, look, okay, you've got honeydew items. They can do it Monday afternoon. But, you know, if you need me to go food shopping Tuesday, it ain't happening. So how can we fix that, right? And it really helped the conversation between the communication between the job seeker and the family. So
I love that, Paul. I love it. Kudos to whoever shared that, because that is awesome to see
Thank
it in lots of colors and right there in front of your face. That I love that.
Great. All right. So I want to ask one last question of all of you. I'd love to get 2 or 3 of you to respond. I've seen some positive things in the chat of things that you're taking away from today, but I'd love to hear 2 or 3 of you tell me what's the 1 or 2 things that you're taking from today's meeting that you found most helpful.
I always say, if you got a tidbit, 1 tidbit, it was worth your time. 2 would be awesome, but at
Carol,
least
that's a great smile. Can I put you on the spot and ask?
Ooh.
One thing for me, I would definitely want to get, I'm not sure for every day in a meeting or whatever, but definitely a weekly meeting on a person having a work buddy. And then also some other things too, you always give us good tips too. And one was, I think about that reference solution, you know, just another way of looking for that hiring manager, because it is very hard. You can do it on LinkedIn, but
So hard.
it's just hard to needle it down to who is who in those different companies. So yeah, I definitely do recommend though, the work buddy. Like, you know, if it's not made for every day or made 3 times a week, just like a beginning, the middle, and where you are, I think it's really good. It just helps you just kind of bounce things off. And if you're having a really struggle, you can at least share it with someone and give feedback from a different perspective. So yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Definitely do it.
Thank you. And I see a lot of you have added stuff to the chat now. And those are all very helpful. I'd love to scroll through and read them all off, but you know, Mary, thank you for yours. OC, a couple of times I saw you put some things in there. Vito, thank you for the new comment that you added there. So thank you all for that feedback. Sometimes as a presenter, we don't get to know when we've done right and well and when we need to change or improve. So that's one of the questions I like to ask to get that feedback from everyone. I do need to go now, Christine. I'm sorry. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. As I said, this episode was recorded, and I will be in touch with everyone that registers for the event with the YouTube link as soon as it is posted. And thank you all for attending. I hope you did get something that you can implement. Some people today, some people tomorrow, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.